This pretty good coverage is brought to you by Power Grip, the official retail partner of the European Pro Tour.
Hello everyone and welcome back to MDG Media. We are excited to be continuing this EPT All-Stars coverage in beautiful Mijas, Spain. This is round 2 front 9 FPO lead card coverage. An invitation-only event bringing the best in Europe around the world together to compete on this beautiful and unique course. Weather certainly a factor, although the temperatures are quite nice in October. The wind coming into play this week. We see our leader going into round 2, Kielas, an Estonian player, really strong game and making her MDG debut, leading the field here. Next, joining her, we see Jenni Karppinen, a frequent player here on MDG Media. She's had a fantastic season, is able to perform well in the woods, out in the open. Excited to have her joining us here on this lead card, sponsored by Prodigy Disc. We go now to Rachel Turton, another amazing player, having multiple wins and very many strong performances throughout the season and throughout Europe, really showing how dominant she can be on the course. Very strong off the tee. Another player, I believe, making her debut on MDG Media, Sanna Ahlgrén from Finland. Although I believe living in Spain, she has some great experience playing here in Mijas on this terrain, understands the course, knows which discs she can throw, and that familiarity will really be helpful, particularly if the weather and the wind is not ideal. We kick it off here on hole 1. Par 3, 80 meters straight uphill. These players will need to swing a big backhand hyzer up and over the trees, crashing down into this hillside where you see the basket tucked away. A little bit of a back slope for you to attack on the putt, but also potential for roll away here. You see OB close on the right, as well as if you go too far deep. Quite a demanding hole 1, but certainly possible. Marie getting us started here, opting for the standstill, and you see a little bit of a low release. You really need quite a lot of power to push so steeply uphill, and first throw of the round, maybe not fully warmed up. Jenni there getting a nice turnover shot through the gap and a little bit more distance it looks like there, although still could be a little bit higher to really push the altitude. Rachel very strong off the tee, as I mentioned in her player spotlight, has a lot of power, and you see her get the height there, swing the hyzer in, and certainly the more traditional play, although ending a little bit left, she will be a bit pinched. However, a safe par, if not a possible birdie chance. We go to Sanna now, opting for a sort of hybrid between the walk-up and the standstill. She took just a single step forwards with her lead foot, and you see they're getting caught up in the trees. She's going to have to shape this very specific anhyzer with both the width and the height, very narrow. Unfortunately kicks off the ground. She'll be left with a lot of distance. Jenni playing very smartly for the par there. Marie as well, you can see the safety that the backstop offers. You can really just get one into the ground there. Rachel as well, a little bit too compromised to find a putting stroke, although good distance up the fairway on her drive. As all of them pitch up, we'll be looking at 3 par putts and a bogey for Sanna. Rachel to get us started. Worth noting, you see the sunshine coming out here. Although this is October in Europe, degrees were in the 20s, around 20 Celsius throughout the week, and certainly great playing conditions relative to the rest of Europe. A really exciting event at the end of the season to bring the players together, to have one last competition and determine who will be your European Pro Tour All-Star of the season. We see the difficulty of Mijas statistically throughout the day, particularly with the weather in round 2, playing quite difficult. The birdies were rare, the bogeys were a little less rare, but certainly a lot of these holes are in play. We see here hole 2, an 81-meter par 3 downhill in this nice little funneling valley. Anything that goes too long of the basket will find itself OB very quickly. This one requires precise angle control, and often players will choose to throw with something quite stable to overstable in order to just catch the early ground and not flip up and ride too much. The forehand hyzer plays very nicely for the right-handed player if you're comfortable with that. Marie here. She's got this one flipped up to flat, and it glides straight by the basket and bye-bye, off the hill long, very quickly finding the OB as I mentioned. And that is the danger of getting that nose angle just a little bit wrong here. That overstability is what will allow you to dump earlier in the flight and ensure you don't get too much glide. We see Jenni maybe a little bit spooked by that OB throw from Marie. Get it just a touch too low, but you do want a nose down angle off this tee shot. We see Rachel going to the forehand here, and I think this is the most traditional shot shape. And just like that, she puts it into the circle. I think some good ground play to close a few more meters, and she'll be looking at her birdie putt there. Sanna playing the soft turnover, but with some early fade there. And a dog loose on the green. Very interesting. We go to Jenni. You see, very short. This is still a tricky upshot. By no means is that an easy par, and she's done well to control the distance there. Didn't go long, but has put herself fairly close. Sanna, underturning her backhand shot, is up on the hill and pitches up to 5 or so meters. We see Marie here, a chance to save the par from OB long. And able to give it the confidence. A great putt for her there. Does take the 3, but with only 2 throws, a great confidence booster. And a great thing about those uphill putts, you can really bid it confidently. This is Rachel for birdie. And unfortunately cashing out the left side. No damage done. Although early in the round, if you're in circle 1 and not converting the birdies, it can sometimes pressure the mind a little bit. Some doubts can creep in, but I know Rachel has some great experience which she can draw on. And has really gained a lot of maturity as a player throughout this season, shown in her gameplay. See here, hole 3, a par 4 at only 142 meters, certainly an attackable hole and statistically one of the easiest. You want to try to clear as much distance over this valley as you can and attack the hillside where you see this basket perched on the plateau of the other side. Definitely the green can cause some trouble here, but getting there is also requiring quite a lot of precision. And we'll see these players try to find their birdies here. This is certainly on the front 9, the one that most players will want to try and get. Marie once again trusting that controlled standstill. And a great power hyzer flip. Potentially could have pushed it a little bit more straight with a bit more turn, but a very nice, safe progress up the fairway. Really no damage done. Jenni playing a very similar shape. That stable disc with a straight pushing flight and a late fade, particularly when the fairway drops off and goes a bit downhill. Your disc has a lot more room to fade. You'll find more leftwards movement than you otherwise would. And we see the power hyzer from Rachel. crashing one in right to that sweet spot near Jenni. Sanna here a little bit low. She gets it out to flat. And she does look to have cleared those last trees. She curls up at the base of another. Not a particularly easy shot. We see the tree here in her throwing stroke. Uphill, slightly awkward angle. And the line looked very good, but a little bit short. You see she had a lot of altitude to contend with and was not quite able to crest the hill. We go to Marie now. In a strong spot, has a much more open throw, and you see her pinpoint precision, absolutely parking it for her tap-in birdie on the next one. Textbook execution of hole 3 by Marie. Jenni as well, slightly visually obstructed, but light work for her. Great control of the standstill, particularly on these slopes. Eliminating the walk-up, if you can, is a great asset to have. And Rachel as well, all of them playing that chip hyzer. Goes to show how much it helps to have a little bit more distance off the tee, as all of them have very manageable upshots. And Sanna opting for the par. Rachel here, another chance to secure the birdie. And this one is in, although made her question it for a second. Has a little bounce around, settles in the basket. This is Jenni to keep pace. And Marie as well, going to be retaining her one-stroke lead so far here on hole 3. And you see quite the gap between 3rd and 4th place here. Sanna sitting at plus 14. These other 3 competitors really making that confirmed push for the podium.
Pro Discus Jokery is the world-famous putter that can be used for all kinds of throws and is an excellent choice for everyone.
Here we have the Pro Discus Jokery. The numbers are 3, 3, 1, 2. There's a very overstable but predictable throwing putter. It will always finish left, and it will handle torque if you're a sidearm player. Anytime I'm wanting a fairly straight shot, but making sure it finishes left and isn't finishing to the right. I enjoy this disc, and I'm sure you will too.
Here we see this beautiful overhead shot of hole number 4, a par 5 at 232 meters. This one has a long, winding fairway with very few flat points. You'll see a lot of players who go a little bit off to the side of the fairway end up with weaker footing and potentially making it harder for them to progress safely up the fairway. Where you see this basket tucked behind the final guardian tree, these players will need a long first left to right movement, continuing with a straight shot and then potentially straight to leftwards at the end to try and find the green in 3 shots. A lot of open air and minimal trees, so players can really try and push their lines if they'd like to. There's that left to right movement from Marie, and she finds a little bit of stability late in the flight, but certainly a good spot to be and look to be nice progress as well. Anything past that bend which we saw her breeze by puts you in an open position to attack the ideal second shot. And Jenni immediately unhappy with that, definitely underturned, and that will send her out to the left into the rough. Could be difficult from there. Rachel getting that left to right movement, and in fact slightly overturned, finds the cut roll to the perfect position, directly to the center of the fairway, flat ground. That is where you want to be. Sanna with a low piercing shot fades out towards the end of the flight. She is still not quite around the bend. You see, doesn't have quite the same speed out of the hand off the tee as some of the other players here, but still crafting and hitting her lines. We see her make good progress up there. Curious if she'll go for another backhand on the 3rd shot. Not sure that we've seen her throw a forehand yet. Jenni with a low slider. That is certainly an adequate position to attack for birdie. She'll still have some distance, but positionally where you want to be. Rachel getting this a bit overturned into the hills. Does not complete the full flight of the disc, although being on that right side, if she has an open look, can potentially make the entrance to the green easier, but I think Rachel really didn't bite off enough there. And we see a very solid shot from Marie, straight down the middle. Sanna from her slightly compromised, pinched position, having to throw more of a chip placement shot than a distance shot. We see Jenni a long straight look now to the green. And that stability kicking in too early, just a few meters from the basket, but potentially has no putt. Getting behind that final guardian, Rachel, with a great approach here. Buttery smooth, finds the slide. Late stability to land flat. Really nice body and angle control, throwing from an awkward stance there. Marie, I think, likely going to play a little chip hyzer out on the right here. There's no reason to contend with the bushes on the left. And you see a little bit too much of that. Caught the branches there, preventing it from getting the full fade left and forwards, leaving her in circle 2, although a birdie look. We go to Sanna. I believe this is her 4th, also playing the hyzer entrance to the green and just clearing it all. Looks to be a fairway driver and settles on the green. A big moment here for Marie. Putt for birdie and just shy of chains. We see if Jenni is able to manufacture her birdie look here. A window around the trees perhaps, but also quite compromised. We go again to Rachel, her 3rd birdie putt in a row. And just a little bit low, doing so well to create the opportunities and chances for herself to separate in score. But a bit low on the putt. Jenni, all things considered, played it all right. Her first throw, I think, a little bit errant for her standards, but it was more than enough to have a good second shot. And the approach, really the only thing catching her in trouble and preventing her from finding the birdie. As we see from our card there, a par frame. No strokes won or lost on hole 4. Hole 5. A par 3 at 101 meters, once again slightly downhill and very well guarded. This pinpoint green you see surrounded 360 degrees by trees. This one needs either a big bomb hyzer up over the trees on the right and spiking in. Some players will choose more of an anhyzer flex or a hyzer flip up line through the gap that the drone flew between the initial trees. You really just want to pick the line that you're comfortable with and try to find this well guarded green. Again, these small changes in altitude. Marie just getting a slightly late release there into the bushes. Potentially still an adequate par if she was able to get through them though. Jenni with a nice piercing shot. You see her nose angle a little bit low there, but very good for progress. She fights through and slides up. A long putt for her birdie and a difficult hole to find the 2 on. We see Rachel playing that big hyzer, but a touch to nose up. She has good distance. It just fades a little bit left. Might also potentially have a long putt or an easy layup. We go to Sanna. Playing the hyzer. Looked to be an attempt at a placement shot, but you see this placement not ideal. Blind to the basket, needing to go spike hyzer up and around. She swings that one back down. Well done. Good knowledge of the course there. having experience here and not needing to see the basket to be precise on her upshot. A very nice parked job by Marie there. This is Jenni for her birdie. A long look. Jenni always aggressive on the putts. You see that one had the pace and the height, but a little bit too much even of both. Goes right of the basket. This is Rachel from the bushes. And just off the top, she is all over the middle. Once again, giving herself a birdie putt. That one much more difficult, though, than the previous. And we look to be collecting our par frame here on hole 5. Hole 6, a par 3 at 129 meters, a long par 3. This is one where players are really encouraged to rip one. You have this open field leading to this row of trees and this slightly sloping green uphill, as well as a rock wall to the left. This basket is tucked way at the back here. Very well guarded and really requires 2 good shots to get to. Forcing players to adapt to certain angles, especially off such a big tee shot. It's very rare you land in the exact same spot more than once. So navigating those final trees each time you play the hole can be a different experience, requiring different discs, different shapes. And Marie with good hyzer progress there. She will have a low ceiling behind that big tree on the right of your screen. Jenni potentially looking to get a bit more shape out of this, but you see the risk. That is not the basket she is playing to there. A bit of risk as she turns it over too much, doesn't find the late flex I'm sure she was hoping for, and Rachel here, similar to Marie, airs to the left side. It is the safer of the two. You have that rock wall, but the gap that both of those players, Marie and Rachel, will be left with is extremely narrow. Sanna, I think a little bit nicer on the width. Not quite as much distance, but a very nice spot. And I think, honestly, of the 4 shots, probably the most preferable in terms of how open her next one is. But a lot of distance left remaining. She's shaped this beautifully, though. Straight down the gap and almost even hits metal. That is right up there for a safe 3. You see the value of having an open look. A forehand from behind the bushes there. Probably Marie. Yeah, we go to Rachel now. Also looking to shape the forehand. Rather than going around, she chooses to punch underneath. And she didn't look too pleased. And that was Marie there. So it must have been Jenni's shot previously that we saw approach. As we go to Rachel now. Putting off the knee to try and navigate the ceiling. Good height, but you see just how difficult hole 6 is as a par 3. Many obstacles, a ton of distance, a risky green, and an amazing putt from Jenni Karppinen. Really a good spot to find that par. Seeing Rachel, who she's tied with, taking a bogey. We go to Marie here. Also some work left. But great speed control there. Just floats that one into the heart of the chains. Sanna, I think, played this hole in a pretty perfect way. Great drive to the open, flat part of the fairway, dead center. hits the second gap cleanly to the park job and taps in her 3.
Usually before every shot, I have a little mantra that I say to myself, and that mantra is all the confidence in the world. When it comes to trying out these new discs, I know that when I'm going to throw those discs, I'm going to have all the confidence in the world.
Here you see treacherous hole 7, another 100+ meter par 3. You see a very unique tiered green that players will try to drop their disc onto. 4 levels and a steep drop off to the left. This is a very tricky hole to try and park. A lot of players will opt to just try and hit the hill and settle as softly as possible. That left to right shape is favored. Perhaps Rachel the only one possibly considering the forehand off the tee, I would think. But it does play nicely to try and spike on in and reduce the ground play. Anything that finds significant leftwards fade can very quickly be in trouble. And as a result, you see a lot of the right-handed backhands play sharply to the right side, as Marie shows us there, just to try and mitigate the possibility of fading down the hill. Jenni as well has very good angle control, likes to craft shapes and play with the stability of the discs. We see her also erring to the side of caution, and even from somewhere like there, it's not even a realistic putt because of the drop off. So unless you're either putting uphill or quite close, this is not going to be an easy putting opportunity. Sanna there catching too much fade, and as I mentioned, any touch of stability late in the flight or running out of speed will leave you down at the bottom. As predicted, Rachel going to her power hyzer forehand, and this looks really nice. Shaping that beautifully and crashes into the green, looks to be just outside circle 1. Interested to see if she chooses to run that putt or not. Has already unfortunately missed a few circle 1 birdie chances. She may just accept that she doesn't want to take that risk, but I also wouldn't be surprised if she's really trying to prove both to herself and the viewers that she is there to play for it all. Jenni with a fortunate bush. That had a lot of speed and very well could have found her off the edge without it. Marie straddling to make room and just pitching up nicely, very safe. We go to Rachel now. And tough to say if that was a run or a layup. It certainly looked like something in between. Very fortunate that she's left just 5 or so meters away here. And still a nervy putt, and just like that, her birdie chances move to bogey. Unfortunate outcome as Jenni will continue to separate. Sanna, well done to save that par after fading way down the hill. Marie also able to secure the par, both her and Jenni so far bogey free. Hole 7 here in round 2, averaging 3.6, more than a half stroke over par. And I think just due to the fact that the birdies are so seldom, you need to have such good circumstances to have a safe birdie putt. Requires a lot of touch and skill. We move on to another difficult hole. Hole 8, an 84-meter par 3 uphill. This one also with a generous backstop if you really want to try and rip your drive straight at it, or if you're putting uphill, you can really give it the confidence. Of course, there is always the risk of rollaway here in Mijas, but certainly a green that you can attack, and the potential for some birdies out there, although this hole averaging even 0.1 higher at 3.7. There are a lot of obstacles. This green, if you're not putting towards the backstop, if you're putting laterally from the left or right, can really be treacherous. Marie playing big hyzer up the hill. A little bit of a roll, but settles nicely. Jenni not quite getting it over enough. Does fade out left, although looked to have some good distance, and I think her disc settled in quite a solid spot. We'll go to Sanna now. Similarly to Jenni, not turning it over enough, and she catches an early bush that shortens her distance even more. Rachel here, sending this bomb out to the green and pinpoint delivery right to the bottom of the hill. That is the exact spot you want to land. She has just thrown that to perfection. Very well done by Sanna there. Has not had the best drives off the tee, but if you look at her scorecard, has taken pars on a lot of holes where her circumstances might lead to an easy bogey. She's done well to control the damage after some tricky tee shots. Marie giving it a bid. Or, to be fair, it was a good layup. Was potentially considering a bid there, but so uphill. Certainly difficult. Rachel, another look at birdie. And off the right side, the woes on the putting green continue. She's throwing the disc so well, but at that short distance, continuing to find trouble. And Jenni as well, with a very late release to the short putt, both of them going off the right side. And this is what I meant about a treacherous green. If you find any significant fade or movement off the top, you can be left with a lot of distance left remaining on the putt. Sanna for par. Rachel here will really need to dial in this putt, but you see she doesn't take much time at all. I think just looking to get that in and move to the next hole. As we see a bogey for Jenni and a par for the rest of the card. Hole 9. 78-meter par 3, quite a traditional tunnel shot, although it is uphill and sloping slightly right to left. You have this series of fairly narrow gaps that you want to hit to try and pierce through. I think a lot of players going to an understable fairway or distance driver, trying to hyzer flip one up the middle, push to the green as far as you can. Another one that says 78, but the altitude and terrain certainly make it feel longer. Quite difficult to go long with so many obstacles. We will see Marie getting us started. That basket perfectly framed right down the middle. And well aimed there. She hit the gap very purely. A little bit low to get all the distance, but a great shot. Any sort of look at the putt is quite nice here. This one a little bit more friendly, averaging a 3.1. Rachel looking to make a slightly more of a flex line than a hyzer flip. Had a flatter release with what looked to be a more stable disc, and unfortunately catching the right side there. We go to Jenni now. Rachel able to straddle out with the forehand approach. Jenni likely going to give this one a jump putt. And just shy. A nice chance there. A good honest bid from way down. Sanna as well. Effectively a throw from there. And Marie, closest of the bunch, had a chance at the birdie. Also a little bit low again on these steeply uphill putts. Not only does the gap between the band and the cage get smaller the steeper it is, but also requiring a lot more height, a lot more distance to get all the way up there, as we look to be cultivating a par frame here to wrap up our front nine. Just like that. As we take a look at the standings, Marie continuing to hold her solo lead position, currently 2 strokes ahead of Jenni, who is sitting at +3. Rachel 1 stroke behind her at +4, with the other competitors separated quite significantly. This race looks to be narrowing to these top 3 competitors, still very tight, and on a course that offers a lot of separation, I would still very much say it is any of theirs to win. Thank you for joining us here, this exciting Round 2 EPT All-Stars coverage. You can make sure to support the channel by subscribing, liking, commenting, or find us on Patreon, where there is soon coming some exclusive content supporting European disc golf coverage. We appreciate your time. Make sure to catch us on the back nine.